right, guys, welcome back. Today we have on Jim Smith Jr. He is the PGA Director of Golf at the Philadelphia Cricket Club. The purpose of this interview is to get a glimpse of what it means to be a director of golf at a prestigious club, and just to see Jim's journey through golf, and just to get a taste of what it's like to climb up the ranks. Jim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm flattered I've been invited on the show. I appreciate it and appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm excited to get into this interview. So before we get too in-depth about you, I have a question to open us up. You work at the Philadelphia Cricket Club. Do you guys really have cricket? Do you guys really play cricket there?
We actually do, believe it or not. The club was founded actually in 1854. It's the oldest country club in the United States, and it was actually founded originally for the purposes of playing cricket. And through the years, the club's evolved. We've added, 2.5 golf courses and all kinds of different amenities. But we are one of the few clubs in America that still does have a cricket team. We have a cricket pitch. In fact, it's actually one of the best cricket pitches in the world. And in the United States, it's generally recognized as the best cricket pitch in the United States.
Wow. Wow. Like I see Philadelphia Cricket Club. I'm like, I wonder if that's just, not the old, but the established name, and now they just, moved on to golf. But that's awesome. That is awesome. Do you guys host any major cricket tournaments, or is it just more so a local recreational deal?
Well, you know what? There's a few clubs in Philadelphia. There's a few clubs in the United States that actually play cricket, so we generally will do home and aways with them. But because the reputation of the club and the reputation of the field, we actually host every year teams from around the world. So, for example, the mecca of cricket is Marylebone in London, in the Marylebone Cricket Club, and they generally come over and visit us every other year, and then our cricket team goes to London and gets to play in their stadium. And we've had teams from Australia and New Zealand and South Africa, all over the world come and visit the club. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, let's get into your story. So you are the PGA Director of Golf at the club. When did you get that first taste of golf that hooked you?
I played a little bit growing up. My dad was a good player. I got to tag along occasionally with my dad, and he would take me to the driving range to hit balls, and there was just something, cool about when you hit it just right, watching the ball take off into the sky. But I didn't play a lot as a child. Every once in a while, my dad would take me to the golf course. But it gave me enough of an interest in the game to feel like it was something that, would be part of my life. And when I graduated high school and went into college, I had my own painting business in the summers. And it was during the summer of my freshman year that I really got hooked on golf. And I got to the point where my business was doing pretty well. So I would go in the morning. I would tell the guys kind of, this is what I need you to do in the house. And then I'd go play golf all day. And then at the end of the day, I'd come back and check on them. So I got to do that for 3 summers. And that's when I started to, get reasonably good at it. I'm by no means, proficient, because it's very, very few people are. But that ultimately was sort of what that period in my life in college was, when I just got completely head over heels hooked on golf, and been fortunate to kind of get where I am today.
That's actually very different from most people I talk to about whether it's golf or any sport. Usually they have that first taste in their adolescent period, like maybe early teens or so. So for you to get that itch in college, that's actually pretty remarkable, in a sense that it's that's just not typical, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. That's not typical at all. It must
what I think
fully consumed you, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
It did. And what I think happened was, I played 3 sports in high school and was reasonably good, and ended up going to I could have played sports in college at a smaller school, but I ended up going to a larger school at Villanova. And the absence of full-time sports. I mean, I know you played in college, you played football in college, and you kind of know what it's like. I mean, it sort of builds that competitive, driven piece of who you are. And without team sports to do that, I think I ended up sort of channeling my energy and focus into golf, because golf gave me that competitive outlet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what ended up hooking me.
Yeah, that's cool. So after it hooked you, like, did you completely change your future outlook as far as career? Like, I mean, right now you're the PGA director of golf. Did you ever see that in your future? Or is it just something that you've just come into?
I got really lucky, basically. I mean, essentially what happened was I graduated from college, and I had a degree in finance and economics. I thought at the time I'd end up being a stockbroker or an investment banker or something like that. But I needed a job, so I took a job in sales, and I did that for about 6 months and absolutely hated it. I was miserable. And my wife today, who at that time I was dating, we had a long talk about kind of my unhappiness with my career, and she said, "What do you like to do?" And I said, "I love golf." And she's like, "Well, why don't you try to figure out a way to make a living in golf?" So on the next day, on one of my sales calls, I took a detour and I stopped in a club, and I told golf professionals in Philadelphia this story, but I pulled into this club called Commonwealth National Golf Club, and there was a pro there named Kerry Mattern, and I just walked in off the street and said, if I wanted to get into golf, what would I do? And the guy couldn't have been nicer, couldn't have been more supportive. He spent an hour basically guiding me into what you would need to do to become a pro, and it was almost like the fact that this guy took the time to talk to a complete, wet behind the ear stranger, made me kind of fall in love with the idea of the profession even more. I'm like, man, if this is what all the guys are like, this is something I would love to be able to do. So he gave me some advice, and maybe a month later I quit my job and started looking to become a golf professional.
So let's talk about that. I mean, first of all, that's awesome. That is awesome. Sometimes, a lot of times, especially in sports, and as you get further and further away from childhood, you need a little bit of courage, and you get very, very fortunate with people who see that and they put you on the right path. So that's I don't want to say that's a fairy tale, but that's you don't get solid career advice by walking into somewhere, like that's that's pretty remarkable.
But, incredibly fortunate that Kerry took the time, because that was really that moment that it was like, hey, maybe this is what I want to do with my life.
Yeah. So let's talk about becoming a PGA pro. But before we talk about that, what was your initial forecast of your career arc, if you will? What did you want to end up doing in golf?
I wasn't sure. I mean, so at that time I was 22. My wife and I had been dating since 10th grade at the time, and we had just gotten engaged. So I didn't necessarily think that I was good enough, nor did I have sort of what I felt like was the freedom to go pursue playing golf for a living. I was pretty realistic at that point. The idea of being a club professional sort of appealed to me, and I got unbelievably lucky in that I landed an assistant professional job at the Riverton Country Club, which was about a half an hour from where I lived, and I was working for this guy named Fred Phillips, who was an established golf pro, just one of the nicest guys around. So I ended up at a really nice private club working for a great guy, and that was sort of like dipping my toe in the water, and am I going to really like this? And I happened to be a great situation. And I was working there for about 10 months, and there's a little 9-hole club in the town that I grew up in where I was actually a member at, because they had a fitness center and pool. And I was walking by the pro shop one day to go work out, and the pro, who knew I was a new golf professional, grabbed me. His name was Greg Costa, and he told me a very sad story about the fact that he had been just recently diagnosed with cancer, and that he was going to have to give up the job. And I had talked to him previously, just friend to friend, and he suggested that maybe I would be a good guy for that job. And literally 2 days later, I was in the office of the guy who owns the club talking about becoming a golf professional at this little 9-hole club after having only been a golf pro for a year. And they took a chance on me, gave me the head pro title, and at the time I just short of my 24th birthday, and I'm the head pro at this little 9-hole club in my hometown. You know, I just have had so many lucky breaks and so many like right place, right time moments, and so many people who have, you know, either looked out for me or seen something in me and took a chance on me. I'm like the epitome of like the lucky guy who's just gotten the right breaks.
Well, you know, I think it's after 2 times, it's who you are. It's not really luck anymore, right? You're just that good. You're that capable of being in the right situation. I don't think it's luck anymore. So what was it like at that 9-hole course? Was it a struggle? Was it a challenge for you?
It was a huge challenge because I was sort of in uncharted waters. I mean, having worked for this guy, Fred, for a year, I learned a lot about the business, but I still knew very little. And, you know, I was making a lot of mistakes, but I was young. I was enthusiastic. I was eager. I wanted to learn. The members took a shine to me. They liked me. They thought I was a nice young guy. And, you know, I was just constantly focused on trying to make them happy. And that job was one where you had to sort of be a jack of all trades. So not only was I the golf professional, but for a stretch, I was actually the superintendent of the course. So there were a lot of days where I would come in at 3 a.m. I'd go out on the golf course. I'd put the sprinklers in the quick couplers. I'd turn the water on. I'd mow greens. I'd change into being a golf pro, let's say at 8 o'clock in the morning, be a golf pro for the bulk of the day, and then go back out and, you know, do more watering. And it was like, it was like packing, you know, 20 years worth of learning opportunity into a 5-year window, which is the time that I was there. Yeah. And, you know, frankly, for my career, it couldn't have happened at a better time in my life, and it couldn't have been a better opportunity for me. And, you know, as in the same sort of lucky way that I landed there, I had a member of mine at this club who had joined a new country club that was about 5 miles away that was part of a housing development. And she got wind that their golf pro was leaving, so she went into the owner of that club and basically said, hey, the pro at my 9-hole club is a great guy. I think he'd be a great fit for your place. Why don't you take a look at him? So my phone rings. It's the owner of this club. And he says, what are you doing? I said, nothing. He goes, come up here right now. I want to interview you. So literally, I went up to the club. I sat down with him. I talked to him for like 5 minutes. He said, let's go for a ride. I was like, where are we going? He goes, you're going to drive me back down to your 9-hole club and you're going to sell me a membership.
Wow.
Okay. So we drive back down to my 9-hole club. I walk him around, tour the facility with him as if I'm going to sell him a membership. We drive back up to his place. He offers me the job on the spot. And he basically says, I'm offering you the job because I would have bought a membership from you, so you're a good salesperson. And your car was impeccable because I'm sort of like a neat, organized freak. Mm-hmm. And when he got into my car and he saw how neat my car was for somebody my age, he was like, this guy is organized, he's neat, he knows what he's doing. And literally it was like overnight, I'm the head pro at a really nice 18-hole club.
Wow.
It's bizarre.
So let's take a second here because, you know, you made comments like, you know, I'm just that lucky guy. And to myself, in my mind, I'm like, you know, you're a hard worker, you're constantly improving yourself, your situation, you're good to those around you. It's only obvious that you're going to get opportunities. That right there is, it's not about, it's about luck and it's about fortune, but at the same time, it's also about some of the core and the very fiber of who you are. When you sold him on that membership per se, like, mm-hmm. were you like in that moment just like, you know, I gotta get this right, or were you just cool and calm and just like, hey, this is what we have. These are some of the amenities, you know, like. Mm-hmm. Can you take us back to that audition, if you will, that interview?
You know, that's a really awesome question, and this is the honest answer. I was very relaxed when I met with him because I had a job at this 9-hole club that I really liked, that I was happy at. I didn't feel pressure that I had to go get another job per se. And I think because I didn't feel that pressure, I was able to be, just sort of natural in who I am. And when I was at this club, it's called Talamore, I was there for 9 years. I ended up becoming the GM and the director of golf at this club. And then when the cricket club job opened up, it was very, very similar. It was people who from cricket had been taking lessons at Talamore kind of got to know me. And when the cricket job opened, they came to me and they were like, hey, you might be a good fit for this. And when I went and interviewed at cricket, it was very, very similar in that I was coming from a spot I really liked. I was happy at. Granite Cricket is a top club, and it was more rewarding financially, but it wasn't like I had to go get another job. And it was kind of like, hey, I'm just going to be who I am, and if it's a fit, it's a fit, and if it's not, maybe there'll be a fit that comes down the road later. And thank God they saw something and thought that I was a good fit, because for the last 8 years, I can't imagine there being a better club pro job in America, working for a better membership at a better place. It's just, I really do honestly think that a lot of it is luck, but I also really believe that, our lots in life are a function not of a flashy resume or the one time where you have an opportunity to interview. I think our lots in life are dictated by what we do every day. It's the minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, treating people the right way. If it's the proverbial, if good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people sooner or later.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I said a little bit about it earlier. If certain things keep happening to you, it's no longer a phenomenon. It's not even a trend. It's kind of what makes up your situation. So as we spanned 15 or 20 years almost of your earlier career, or your current career, I should say. I'm picturing you selling a membership at your 9-hole club to the guy at the Talamore.
Yep.
And I'm thinking about you going from there to the next club and then eventually to the cricket club. And in my mind, I'm just like, okay, like, how do you get ahead? Like, obviously you're very good and you're passionate at what you're doing. How did you keep your edge? How did you get an edge? First of all, before we talk about keeping an edge, how did you get an edge as far as being able to sell? I know that you're a finance and economics guy. Is that something that you had to hone? Is that something that you just had a love and you just expressed your love for the course, the amenities, the members, or is it something that you vigilantly practiced upon?
I absolutely worked at it and practiced at it. I would, and using the sports analogy, knowing your background in football, it's like for you to be the best football player that you can be, you have to be the guy that ran the extra sprint or did the extra set in the weight room. You have to be the guy, something in you, the competitive drive, the will to win, whatever it is, it pushed you to want to be better than you are today. And, I'd like to think that that's a learned skill, but, that's debatable. I think some people just have it in them. And I feel like I'm one of those people who always wants to be better. So like, as I used to like read all the industry magazines and I would cut articles out about how to merchandise or how to teach or how to fit clubs, and I would put them in a scrapbook and I would review them every winter when I had downtime. I've got, 150 books on my bookshelf about managing people, selling, customer service, because none of the stuff that I do is an original idea. I'm just stealing it from somebody who's already done it and who was nice enough to put it into words.
Yeah.
So it's just, so I think what ended up happening, and to answer your question specifically, was my ability to sell is a function of wanting to be good at it, and then, taking the time to learn how to be better at it, whether it be reading a book or talking to people who are good salespeople and asking questions of them, asking them how they do it well. It's like a constantly evolving process. And I was just talking with one of the guys that I work with today, and we were talking about how the status quo is the same as getting worse. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. Mm-hmm. And I want to get better. I want to be one of those guys that, when I'm 60, I want somebody to say that I'm a better golf pro at 60 than I was at 30. Not I peaked when I was 35, and I started coasting when I hit my 45 or 50th year.
Exactly. Wow, you in that answer you kind of hinted at a couple questions I had, which is awesome. I mean that that means that I'm doing a good job in this interview. When we're talking about selling, when we're talking about business, and when we're talking about golf, one of the things that I think that a lot of us don't understand, and I'm just going to talk about business in general and sports in general, we don't understand or we minimize the value and the power of relationships. So in your position, you deal with customers, members, employees, vendors, whether various people for tournaments. You're constantly dealing with people. Some of them trusted, some of them, established, some of them famous, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In your experience, like how do you manage your relationship with people, like differing people, whether they're members or they're, on your board that make decisions that you have to enact? What's your thought process behind that?
Ultimately, every interaction is an opportunity, in my opinion. So every single time you meet somebody, every single time you exchange an email with somebody, every single time you have a conversation on the phone with somebody, it's an opportunity. And the opportunity that exists is you can either leave the person with a positive impression of who you are, you can leave the person with the impression that I don't really have an impression of this person, or you can leave a bad impression. And I think if you understand that and you're conscious of it, who wouldn't want to leave a good impression on everybody? So, my thought is that my whole life, my success, where I end up in life is a function of how people perceive me. Do they like me? Do they trust me? Do they believe in me? And it's my job to earn the trust. So I just am very, very conscious of trying my best to do whatever to make the person who I'm dealing with, whether it be somebody on the board or an outing organizer or a vendor, whoever it might be. I know this is going to I'm oversimplifying it by this, but I want them to like me. And getting people to like me, there's different things that cause people to do that. So for example, I'm a really big thank you guy. So I think those are two incredibly powerful words that oftentimes aren't used enough. I believe in going sort of overboard, which is, I'm a big fan of sending a note to a golf pro at another club. But instead of sending, and I'm just using this as an example, I was lucky enough to play with some members up in North Jersey at a couple of really, really nice clubs last week. And one of the clubs that we visited, I knew the pro a little just from conversations, but not really well. So I sent the pros and their staffs at both clubs a dozen cupcakes and just said, hey, we had a great day, really appreciate it. And I wasn't doing that for show. I was genuinely doing it because I was thankful that I recognized that they let me do something they didn't have to let me do, and I wanted them to know that I was genuinely thankful.
Awesome.
But sending, hopefully that gesture is going to get them to think, when my name's in the conversation, they're like, oh, he's a good guy, he sends cupcakes. That's not something that most guys do. And it goes back to that thing I was saying to you before, which is it's how you deal with people every time that matters. It's not the spectacular service story that you can tell as much as it's treating somebody the right way every time or remembering their name every time, or that to me is the art in it.
That is, it makes sense. I mean, as deep and as profound as you've made it, it truly does make sense. Now, on the flip side of that, well, I wouldn't call it the flip side. The other part of that is that you are running a business, or you're a caretaker in one aspect of a business. A lot of sports players today, whether they're aspiring golf pros or they're, it's just an example of a young baseball player who has confidence and he sees himself as as a brand, and he wants to market. He wants to run his career, quote unquote, as a business. How do you? And I'm saying this knowing that you're a finance and economics guy, so there's no pressure as far as the answer goes. But I just want to get your take. Like, how do you do it? How do you run your passion, what you love to do, as a business?
I mean, listen, we all deal with budgets. We all deal with, resources, some limited, some unlimited. It depends where you work and what you do. And again, I have a tendency to oversimplify things. If you show me a business where the people that walk in are happy, I'll show you a successful business. So it really just boils down to keeping people as happy as you can. And I know that there's a lot that goes into that, but if that's your sort of overarching theme, the business will take care of itself if the people coming to the business are enjoying what they're doing, at least in golf. Like, we have a built-in advantage in golf in that almost everybody, with very few exceptions, that shows up at our golf club is happy and excited to be there. Nobody's like showing up, expecting a bad time or expecting a bad experience. So we our only job is really to keep them happy. It's not even to make them happy. We just have to keep them happy by trying to say yes to them and, understanding what their needs are and addressing their needs. So I don't know if I'm answering your question well, but I just think it boils down to try your best to make somebody happy, and you'll end up benefiting from it. And I want to share something really quick with you. You had said something about like that, young baseball star, right?
Yeah. So
that young kid who is new to the major leagues is on the first base line, and some young kid asks him for an autograph, right? At that moment, he can do one of two things. He can either accommodate the request, or he can say no, right? If he, regardless of what he does, what's going to happen is not only is that kid going to be his fan, but his parent's going to be a fan if he signs the autograph. The people around that guy and around that child are all going to be fans because they watch him do it. And then what's going to happen is they're going to go tell all their friends. So, whispered third or fourth or fifth down the line, when that player's name comes up, somebody who wasn't even there on the first base line is going to be like, oh, yeah, he's a great guy. They weren't even there. But he's a great guy because somebody they trusted said that he was a great guy. And the opposite's true. If the guy fails to sign the autograph and acts like, a moron, that's going to get whispered down the lane. So it's not 2 people that think he's a moron. It's going to be 200. So why wouldn't you just do the simple thing and the right thing?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, to me, what business is. It's just doing the right thing, doing the simple thing. It's not complicated.
Yeah, one of the hard perspectives to break in athletes, as far as whether you're in your current playing career or if you want to be an entrepreneur and start up a business, or you want to be in the corporate world, or whatever you want to do, you have to understand that there's two roads to take when dealing with people. There's the relational road, or there's the transactional road. If you make your decisions based on a transaction, like the opportunity to sign an autograph, if you make that a transaction, you kind of tend to turn people off the wrong way. They start to see that you either are only doing it because you have to, because other people are watching, or they're paying you to. But when you focus on that opportunity as a relational platform, and you're like, hey, Jimmy, are you a Phillies fan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, they're 2 completely different paths, and I agree with you. When you make it about keeping or making people happy, the numbers, and it's not even about oversimplification. It's like the numbers take care of themselves to a certain degree.
Absolutely. And what happens is if you're good at it, you develop trust. People have trust in you. And then over time, that trust manifests itself in your ability to steer the ship kind of where you believe it goes. When my first year at Talamore, I'm reporting to a general manager and an owner. They're getting to know me. They're not sure whether I've got it or not. So, if I make a suggestion about how to handle a piece of business, they rightfully may question it. And I've got to prove myself, right? Well, 5 or 6 years in, when you've done the right things, nothing stupid's happened, business is going well, the next time you walk in there and say, I think we should do this, their answer is going to be like, go ahead, you know what you're doing. And it kind of just builds on itself.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the cricket club in general terms, obviously. What are some of the things you love doing? Like, one of the questions I have written down here, are you more of a day-to-day operations guy, or are you an outing tournament operations guy where it's like there's a tournament on, you love like all the moving pieces in the air for about a 48 to 72-hour span, and you just love getting them all in place and then, nailing the event? Or are you more so slow and steady, day in, day out, stay on course? What type of what excites you, I guess, is what?
Well, I'll answer your first question. Generally speaking, the Philadelphia Cricket Club is the greatest golf club on the planet in terms of a place to work. I mean, it's ridiculous how awesome, the people I work with are, the membership is. It's everybody in their lifetime should get a chance to experience working at a place like the Cricket Club. It's that good. And, my job is essentially, maybe an analogy would be sort of the conductor of an orchestra. We have a big operation, and there's a lot of moving parts to it. And my main job is putting the right parts in the right places and having them do the right things at the right times. So, I've got to attract and retain the best staff that I possibly can. I've got to make sure that everybody is doing the things that they need to do to make sure that the experience for every person at the golf club is the best it can be. So most of my time is spent organizing and then sort of working with each person on the staff to make sure that they are handling what their responsibilities are, whether it be that day, that week, that month. That's a large part of it. And then probably an equally large part of it is just relational. It's just being around the members. It's when a member calls in and says, I got a problem with my bill. It's making sure that gets taken care of the same way as when a member calls in and says, I need to take a golf lesson because my swing's bad, or I'm going to LA, can you set me up on a golf course? Like, every request you get, you got to do your best to make it the most important thing at that moment and take care of it for that member. So I spend a lot of time, believe it or not, on what some people might consider to be minutia. I consider it to be super important, which is, member has a request, take care of it. Member needs something, take care of it. So I'm involved in every aspect of the operation, but I'm more kind of keeping an eye on everything and helping the people who I work with execute. Because ultimately our success isn't going to be, what I do. It's going to be what the people I work with do. It's the guy outside who greets you when you show up at the cricket club. If you ever came to the club to play golf, I'm in the golf shop generally. You may never even step foot in the golf shop. Your whole experience might be dealing with our outside services team and our caddies. So I got to make sure that we have the right people in those positions and that they're doing the right things so that when you walk away, you're like, man, that place is awesome. That's my main job.
Yeah, well, while we're on this topic, what is a misconception about what you do in those terms? I mean, you just said that a lot of people consider a lot of what you focus on as minutia. Is there another misconception as far as what's really important in what you do day to day?
You know what? There is, which is, a lot of club professionals, the perception is that they play and they teach. That their job is to go give lessons to members and to go play in tournaments. And the main job of a club professional at any club is to create the experience for the members and guests that happens every day. And there's a lot that goes into that. It's making sure the scorecard's on the cart when somebody shows up. It's working with the superintendent to communicate if there's any course condition situations that need to be told to the men. It's a million different little things. Our main role as club professionals is promoting golf. It's getting people to play golf. It's getting people to enjoy golf. It's making sure that the experience while they're at the club is the best it can be. It's not necessarily about giving a golf lesson or, playing in a tournament.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Just a quick aside here. I do the research for the interview. I write down questions that I think. It's not that I think. I write down questions that I want to know about. Just being honest,
Mm-hmm.
And
yep.
the cool thing in hearing what you're saying is that, it really, it's not hard. I mean, when I'm talking about, success part. I'm not talking about being able to promote golf or being able to make sure that the people that work with you and under you promote the game of golf. That's not what I'm talking about. That's something that you work on, that you refine, and you excel at over time. But just being successful and exuding that success and sharing that the happiness and the comfort in what you're doing, it's not hard. You just have to believe in it. Is that fair to say?
Without a doubt. We totally overcomplicate it, meaning generally people overcomplicate or overestimate their importance. And there is a lot of truth in I guess the axiom that the best situation is getting paid to do what you love to do. So I happen to be one of those fortunate people that I love golf. I love being around people, and I love, nothing makes me feel better than when somebody sends me an email and tells me what a great day they have at the club. It makes me feel proud that I had an impact on somebody's day, and we get paid to do that. So it's not hard to be passionate about it, and it's not hard to want to be good at it, but it really, to your point, it's not complicated. It just boils down to, going back to what I said before, every interaction is an opportunity. Leave a positive impression. Be conscious of it.
Wow. So who are some of your biggest mentors? You dropped some names earlier when you first got into the professional side of golf. Who are some of your biggest mentors now, or people that you follow? A lot of my peers, a lot of the guys who I've kind of grown up with in the business, I rely on. Philly is loaded with great golf professionals, so you can pick up the phone and call any number of guys. And I've done it in the last 2 days. I've talked to 3 different golf professionals about different things that they do at their club, trying to glean information for what we may do at Cricket. But growing up in the business, one of the things I used to do is when I would play in a tournament, I would request to be paired with some of the old-time pros, guys that were 20, 30 years older than me, and I would drive them crazy because I'd be picking their brain while we're playing golf. They're probably thinking I'm a complete nuisance, but guys like Ron Rolfe and Jack Connolly, who was a past president of the PGA, and Dick Smith Sr., who was also a past president of the PGA, and Pete Trenum, and these guys that have had Hall of Fame careers in Philadelphia and were considered the best of the best in the club pro world. These are guys right in my backyard, and one of the things that I tell, I'm kind of I'm 46, so I'm kind of right in the middle of my career. But I get a chance to talk to the younger guys a lot, and one of the things I tell them all the time is I'm ask questions. I'm flattered if a young guy calls me up and says, "Can I ask you some questions?" I don't think it's annoying at all. I'm yeah, whatever time you need, I'll give you. And I benefited from that. So when I would call or talk to these guys in the tournament, I think that they were genuinely flattered that somebody wanted to hear their thoughts, and I just basically took advantage of it. So whether it was education seminars or on the golf course, wherever it was, I was that little guy tugging on the back of their jacket saying, "Excuse me, sir, can I ask you something?" And, I've benefited from it because I've got tons of wisdom, imparted on me from all these great golf pros. It's awesome. I mean, I think I forget the matrix, but there's visual learners, there's I guess oral learners, there's people who learn by doing, there's people who can read a manual and learn how to do something, or read something to be able to accomplish something. But oftentimes we completely surpass asking somebody who does what we want to do for help, out of fear or pride on our part or whatever. And I remember it clear as day, my dad would tell me, it's like, if you have a question about what I'm asking you to do, you have to ask me. I will not ask you to do something that I don't know how to help you with. And it always just burned this desire in me to, if I have a question, then I ask it. And that's especially in golf, as nuanced and as complex as every little facet, whether it's playing the game or being a pro, a PGA pro. There's so many little things that aren't really little. They're actually kind of important in the grand scheme of things. And why not just, I want to say phone a friend, but it's like, why not use the established knowledge and resources that are in the game?
Yep. I'll tell you what, 1% of stuff that I've done in my career that, went over well at a club, a decision, a philosophy, whatever it is, maybe 1% of it was actually original that I came up with. The other 99% I stole. I'm a good thief. I pay attention. I am. I get to play a lot of great clubs around the country, given my job.
Uh-huh.
Every club I go to, I steal an idea from. I was in California 3 weeks ago, and at a couple of the best clubs in the San Francisco area, and I brought back some ideas that they use that we are going to start using in our operation. It's like, I don't have to be original. I just got to pay attention and be observant.
Now, that's a perfect segue, because my next question is, what are some of the books that you're reading? And I say it's a perfect segue in the sense that what you just said, I read this book by Austin Kleon earlier in the year called Feel Like an Artist. I don't know if you've read it, but it completely changed my perspective on creativity. So I won't give away any pointer or any teasers or anything like that. But what books are you reading? What types of books are you reading? What are you trying to get a beat on right now?
A lot of what I'm looking at now is leadership / communication stuff. Like right now on my nightstand is Everyone Communicates and Few Connect by John Maxwell. And the next book I'll read is 5 Levels of Leadership by Maxwell. So I'm sort of on a Maxwell kick right now, reading through this stuff. One of the things I try to do in terms of educating myself is I try to read different, like there's no one right way to do anything. So my general guideline or my thought or philosophy is that if I read let's say I'm making enough 20 books this year that relate to service, leadership, communication, whatever. If I take one thing out of each of those 20 books, that's 20 things that I'm doing probably better than I was doing before, which is a lot. So I'm not necessarily like reading books hoping that I find that one book that, becomes my philosophy. It's more like, I cherry pick stuff. And it's kind of the same way with my teaching philosophy, like teaching people how to play golf. There's no method that I subscribe to. It's like, if Jim McLean says something that I like, I steal that. If Hank Haney says something I like, I steal that. And, you develop a style that way. But there's so much good stuff out there. There are so many good books and so many articles and so many ways to improve yourself. It's like, it's just sitting there waiting to be taken advantage of. And I want to be one of those people that does that.
I mean, I'm right there with you. All right, so this is the last question. You actually answered, or you gave us a peek into it earlier. We have plenty of opportunities to see the younger ones coming behind us, or even peers for that matter. We have an opportunity to just show them, hey, this is if you need help with this is a great way of doing it. If you're struggling with sales, you should talk to this guy. You should focus on this, or for me, the last question that I want to present to you is, there's a lot of young guys and women that want to be whether it's directors of golf or head pros at a golf course, what two key things would you impress upon them? And you're not limited to two by any means, but what are the key things that you've learned in your time where you just keep running into them, and you're just like, wow.
First and foremost, and it goes back to what I said before, which is you have to be conscious that the next interaction you have or the next person you deal with potentially could be somebody who's going to help you in your career. And you never know when it's going to happen. You never know if it's going to happen. But you have to assume that it could happen. So you have to treat everybody the right way and do things the right way. And if you do that over time, over a long period of time, if you're always doing the right thing, if you're a good person, if you're honest, if you're genuine, it will come back to you somehow and help your career. So I think, and that's more of a life piece of advice I would give like a young golf professional versus specific to golf. And then specific to golf, one of the things I am constantly telling the guys is, have you ever heard the people that listen to this who know me are going to laugh, but have you ever heard the story about the purple cow?
The Seth Godin purple cow, or just the purple cow in general? Oh yeah,
exactly. It's it's basically what I tell guys. What are you doing to be purple? Everybody looks alike in the golf business. There's a ton of young, good-looking, smart, well-spoken golf professionals who are graduating from PGM classes at various colleges around the country or have worked their way through their apprenticeship. Right? They all look alike. What are they doing to be? What are you doing to be purple? How are you going to stand out from all those other people? And what I generally tell guys in the golf business to do is, it's you got to stand out by either working at a great club or working for a great guy who's got an unbelievable reputation, where you got to be a great player, a great teacher. You've got to do something. Maybe it's volunteering for a charity. Maybe it's if you're the guy that helps some local charity raise $1 million. And that's on your resume, doesn't that say something about who you are relative to some other guy who's got similar qualifications?
Yeah.
Like, any of these things could make you stand out. And you have to figure out what you're going to do to stand out, because it's like any industry. There are so many people and so few great jobs that what are you going to do to be one of those people that is going to be under consideration when those jobs open up? I hope, what you're doing, you're spending a lot of time and a lot of effort to bring this to the masses, right?
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't it be really cool, and what'll be neat is 10 years from now, if you're the guy who's on ABC Monday Night Football announcing it, it's going to be pretty cool to remember that you got your start, not your start, but like this was one of the things that helped differentiate you, that showed people that you had the get up and get go to want to be the best. You're doing it. And other people aren't. Other people are just handing resumes out in your industry saying, I'm great, give me a job. Yeah. You got to do it.
Yeah, it's that's great advice. That's not even advice. Those are those are tenets that you make sure that everything that you're doing correlates to. I'm blown away. I usually keep this to myself, but there was at least 3 or 4 times, as I'm hearing you answering questions, I'm just like, this guy just stole a question.
That's funny.
Stole an answer to my question before I even asked it, which is awesome. I thank you for coming on to the show and just sharing your knowledge. Where can we find out more about the Philadelphia Cricket Club? Definitely, and to say thank you to you.
Wow. You can always go to Phila Cricket, PHILA Cricket, of our original our Tillinghast golf course is going to reopen in May. So the club's got a great reputation nationally, and as this course reopens and sort of word gets out, I think, the spotlight will probably find itself on the club a little more than normal. And like I said, we're we are so fortunate. When I say we, the people I work with and I are so lucky to get to go there to work. And you know, as I jokingly tell people, I'm just hoping I don't screw it up for like maybe another 15 or more years.
I doubt that you will. Well, Jim, I want to thank you again for coming on to the show. And wow, this was a great interview.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Like I said, when you dropped me that note, I was like, man, I can't believe, like, you know, you picked me. But I'm very passionate about what I do, and I appreciate the opportunity very much.
Oh, like I said, I'm blown away, and that's not to be facetious or to better you. I'm just blown away, and this has been a great arena of knowledge in this conversation.